Jamal Taylor wiped the grease off his hands and glanced at the time, 3:12 p.m. He cursed under his breath, tossing his rag on the hood of the Dodge Charger he'd been working on since noon. He was going to be late. Again. Tiana hated when he rushed. But she'd been glowing lately, like something sacred was blooming inside her, and Jamal didn't want to miss a second of it. Today was special. They were going to hear the baby's heartbeat for the first time. He sped through the Atlanta traffic, weaving in and out, his mind flicking through what he'd say when he saw her. "Sorry I'm late, babe. Let's make a baby playlist." He'd say it to make her laugh. Her laugh, soft and deep, was his favorite sound. By the time he pushed open the clinic doors, she was already sitting in the waiting room, one hand on her stomach, scrolling on her phone. Her brown curls were tied up in a bun, and her cheeks were flushed with something between nervousness and joy. She looked up and smiled. "Took your time," she said, but there was no anger in it. He kissed her cheek. "Didn't want the car to break down mid-ultrasound," he joked. The nurse called their names, and within minutes, they were in the dim, cool room. The technician was a middle-aged woman named Ms. Denise, short haircut, clipboard, eyes that had seen too much and still softened for moments like these. "You two ready?" she smiled. Tiana nodded eagerly. Jamal stood beside her, gripping her hand, feeling like the world had shrunk down to that tiny screen in front of them. Then, it happened. A soft, rhythmic thump echoed through the speakers. A heartbeat, rapid, real, alive. Tiana gasped. Her eyes welled up. Jamal just stared at the monitor, his throat tight. That sound made everything real. They were about to be parents. "Well, baby looks strong," Ms. Denise said cheerfully as she made notes. "Now, Tiana Hayes, right?" "Yeah. And you're the father?" she asked Jamal. "Yes, ma'am." Ms. Denise paused, eyes flicking between her form and the couple. "Just a weird coincidence," she murmured with a chuckle. "Y'all don't happen to be related, do you?" Jamal blinked. "Huh? Well, your last name's Taylor. And her emergency contact is listed as Denise Taylor. That's just my old habit. I always ask, you know, down here in the South, big families, people cross paths all the time." Jamal laughed, but it was short and awkward. "Nah, I don't think so." Ms. Denise nodded like she believed him. But her eyes lingered on Tiana for a beat too long before she returned to her screen. The appointment ended like any other. She handed them a black and white printout of the ultrasound and a generic pamphlet about prenatal nutrition. But as they walked out, Ms. Denise touched Jamal's arm lightly. "Can I speak to you a moment?" she asked, low. Tiana looked confused. Jamal glanced at her, then nodded. "I'll catch up." Inside the hallway, the nurse's tone changed. "I'm sorry if I overstepped. It's none of my business, really. But I've worked here 27 years. And sometimes when something don't sit right, I say something. Just, maybe have a conversation with your family, okay?" Jamal squinted. "What are you trying to say?" "I'm saying if y'all are family and don't know it, the baby could be at risk. That's all I'm saying. Genetics don't lie." He felt a chill climb up the back of his neck. "We're not related." "Then you got nothing to worry about," she said gently, already turning away. Tiana was waiting in the car, humming along to the radio. When he climbed in, he plastered a smile on his face, but his heart was thudding like a jackhammer. That night, he couldn't sleep. Jamal lay in bed next to her, staring at the ceiling. He hated how the question crept in, unwelcome and wild. They'd met 2 years ago at a street fair. Tiana was selling handmade soaps. He'd stopped to compliment the scent of sandalwood, and they clicked instantly. She told him she'd bounced around foster homes before settling with an aunt in Macon. Her past was messy, but she didn't dwell on it. He thought back to his own childhood. Grew up with his mom, Denise, and never knew his dad. He didn't even have many photos from when he was little, just one tattered photo album in the top shelf of the hall closet. At 3 a.m., he got up. Quietly. He didn't want to wake her. The closet was dusty and full of old shoes and coats. He pulled the album down and sat at the kitchen table. The photos were yellowed, cracked at the edges. Birthday parties. His mom holding him as a baby. One picture caught his eye. It was from his 3rd birthday. There were kids in the background. He didn't remember any of them. But one little girl stood off to the side, her eyes wide, her curls tied in 2 buns. Her skin tone matched his exactly. Her nose, that faint dimple when she half smiled, it was all familiar. He brought the album into the light, holding it up next to the ultrasound photo Tiana kept on the fridge. His stomach turned. The little girl in the photo had a scar above her left eyebrow, the same faint line Tiana had, the one she said came from a bike accident as a kid. His hands started to shake. He stared at the photo again. Same scar. Same eyes. Same half smile. The truth slammed into his chest like a freight train. It couldn't be. It just couldn't. But something inside him, something cold and primal, whispered what he wasn't ready to say out loud. What if Miss Denise had been right? And what if the woman he loved was his sister? Jamal couldn't sleep. He didn't even try. The streetlights cast long shadows across the hardwood floor as he sat on the couch, hunched over the childhood photo that had detonated his world into fragments. The little girl in the background, braided hair, wide brown eyes, that unmistakable dimple on her left cheek, it wasn't a coincidence. It was Tiana. It had to be. His hands trembled as he reached for his phone. "Ma," he said, barely above a whisper. It was 3:17 a.m. She picked up on the first ring. "Jamal? What's wrong?" He didn't waste time. "I need to see you. Now." Denise Taylor opened the door in a worn-out robe, mascara smudged from sleep. Jamal didn't wait to be invited in. He stepped into the house he grew up in, each creak of the floorboard under his shoes felt louder than his heart pounding against his chest. "I went with Tiana to the OBGYN, he said, not even looking at her. They asked if we were related." Denise's face drained of color. He pulled out the photo and handed it to her. "This girl in the background. Tell me that's not her. Tell me it's not Tiana." Her fingers closed around the photo, her knuckles whitening. She stared at it for a long, shattering silence. "Sit down, baby," she whispered. He didn't. "Just tell me." Denise sank into the recliner, the photo still clutched in her hand. Her shoulders slumped under the weight of a secret that had been caged for 27 years. "You had a twin sister," she began. "I was 17. No job. No help. Your father, he disappeared right after I told him I was pregnant. I could barely feed myself, Jamal." His lips parted, but no sound came out. "The hospital social worker told me I could put one up for adoption," she continued, voice cracking. "They said it would be a closed file, no names, no way to trace each other. I didn't know who got her. I chose to keep the boy." He staggered back like he'd been shot. "So you just gave her away?" "I had no choice," she cried. "And I lived with it every day. I thought maybe one day she'd find us. Maybe you two would meet. But I never imagined," she trailed off, the horror catching in her throat. Jamal backed into the wall, his breath coming in ragged gasps. "Her name is Tiana. Tiana Hayes. That's what she told me." Denise looked up slowly, eyes bloodshot with shame. Her original name was Tiana Marie Taylor. Everything inside Jamal broke. He stormed out of the house, ignoring Denise's sobs behind him. The night outside was quiet, cruelly peaceful. He got in his car, turned the key, and screamed into the steering wheel until his throat gave out. How do you unlove someone? How do you erase 3 years of memories, birthday mornings in bed, movie nights under blankets, all the I love yous whispered in the dark? You don't. You can't. You just rot from the inside out trying. Tiana was asleep when he got home. Curled on her side, her swollen belly barely visible under the covers, her face soft in the amber glow of the hallway light. She looked so innocent. He stood in the doorway for a full 5 minutes, watching her chest rise and fall, feeling a war explode behind his ribs. How could fate be this cruel? She stirred. "Hey," she mumbled, eyes still closed. "Where'd you go?" "Just needed air," he lied, voice hoarse. "You've been off all day." She sat up now, rubbing her eyes. "You're scaring me, Jamal." He sat on the edge of the bed, careful not to touch her. "Do you remember anything about your real parents?" Tiana blinked. "Why are you asking that? Just answer." She frowned. "I mean, I know I was adopted. My parents told me when I turned 18. They said it was a closed adoption." "Why?" Jamal didn't answer. His fists clenched in his lap. Tiana reached out, her fingers brushing his arm. "What's going on?" He stood abruptly. "I'm gonna take a shower." She watched him walk into the bathroom and shut the door. The lock clicked. Something cold rippled through her. This wasn't just stress. This was something else. Something darker. The next morning, Jamal skipped breakfast. He said he had a job to finish at the shop. He didn't kiss her goodbye. Didn't even look her in the eye. Tiana stared at the door long after it closed. The pawn shop was just off Edgewood Avenue. Jamal parked around the back, hoodie up, eyes down. The bell above the door jingled. The man behind the glass counter raised an eyebrow. "What are you looking for?" Jamal's voice was low. "Something small. Concealed. Reliable." The man grinned, tapping a box under the counter. "First-timer?" Jamal didn't respond. The gun was lighter than he expected. Cold. Indifferent. A tool of finality. He filled out the paperwork with shaking hands. Fake name. Fake address. Paid cash. By the time he walked back out onto the sidewalk, the pistol weighed 1,000 pounds in his pocket. That afternoon, Tiana searched through Jamal's drawer for the spare car keys. His phone had been buzzing nonstop, and something in her gut told her she wasn't paranoid. She opened the top drawer, and found the ultrasound photo, the one they took just a week ago. Next to it, a crumpled, creased image. A childhood photo. Her hand trembled as she smoothed it out. It was him. Jamal at maybe 5 years old. But in the background, was a girl. Braided hair. Dimple on her left cheek. Her own face. No. No, no, no. She dropped the photo like it burned. Her stomach twisted, nausea rising. Her brain refused to connect the dots, even as they screamed for her attention. Who was she? Who was he? She ran to the bathroom and vomited. Jamal sat in his car outside the shop. Engine off. Gun in the glove box. He didn't know whether to turn the key, or blow his brains out right there. He didn't know what was worse, the disgust clawing through him, or the ache of still loving her, even after knowing the truth. Then his phone buzzed. A text from Tiana. "We need to talk. I found the photo." He stared at the screen until the message faded to black. The gun was still there. Loaded. Waiting. Tiana's hands trembled as she closed the drawer. The cold metal of the gun seemed to linger on her fingertips like it had scorched her. Her first instinct was denial. No way. Jamal would never. But the weight of the weapon, the deliberate way it was hidden under old shirts, left no room for imagination. Something was wrong. Very wrong. For the rest of the day, Jamal said almost nothing. He sat on the couch with the TV on, half watching a football game, the volume too low to hear anything, his beer untouched. His eyes were red, not from tears, but from a storm inside that wouldn't break. Tiana hovered silently in the kitchen, stirring a pot of spaghetti sauce that had long since begun to burn. She hadn't told him she found the gun. She didn't know how. What do you even say to a man who's hiding a weapon in your house while you're carrying his child? She stared at him from across the room. He's not cheating. He's not violent. But he's lying. About something big. That night, after Jamal passed out on the couch, his third beer finally drained, Tiana took 2 toothbrushes from the bathroom and slipped out quietly. At the 24-hour drugstore, she filled out the DNA kit paperwork with shaking hands. No name, no address. Just a barcode, a silent prayer, and $100 swipe of her debit card. The clerk didn't look at her. She was grateful for that. Back home, she stared at Jamal's face as he slept, the soft rise and fall of his chest making her chest ache. He looked like a boy, lost, broken, somewhere far away. And for the first time since she met him, she was scared. Jamal had already done the test 2 days ago. His came back quicker. Overnight express. The moment he saw the results, he vomited in the sink. Then he punched the mirror above it, spidering the glass like a web of guilt. 99.98% probability of full sibling relationship. He hadn't cried. Not really. Not in a normal way. It was more like he shattered in slow motion, piece by piece. The woman he kissed every morning. The child growing inside her. His twin. His F***king twin. They even shared a birthdate. But no one had ever connected the dots. Denise had confirmed it. Not just a half-truth, not a whisper of doubt. "You were both born at Grady," she'd told him. Same night. She went to another family before I ever held her. And now here they were, drawn back together like magnets too strong to resist. He hadn't told Tiana. Couldn't. Every time he looked at her face, it was like watching a slow-motion car crash and being unable to stop it. He wanted to scream it out, to tear the truth from his chest like a confession. But all he could do was drink. He was disgusted, with himself, with his mother, with God. If there was one. He walked the streets at night in silence. Thought about crashing the car into a pole. Jumping from the highway overpass. But then he'd think about Tiana. About the baby. About the innocent part of this horror. When Tiana got her results 4 days later, she didn't open the envelope right away. She sat with it pressed against her chest, as if the truth inside could seep through the paper and prepare her. But the fear was too loud now. The gun. The drinking. The distance. She ripped it open in the bathroom. One line stood out, clear and cruel. Probability of full sibling relationship, 99.98%. She dropped the paper. Bent over. Threw up into the sink. All those memories came flooding back, how she and Jamal had clicked instantly, how it always felt too easy, too familiar. The inside jokes. The feeling that he just knew her. That he could finish her sentences. Now it made sense. She backed away from the mirror. She couldn't look at her face. She felt dirty. Violated. Not by him, but by the universe. By fate. By secrets that should have stayed buried. And then she remembered the gun. Was he planning to kill himself? Or worse, her? Her breath caught. She grabbed her phone, heart hammering, ready to call him, scream at him, cry. But as soon as she unlocked it, a text buzzed through. It was from Jamal. One sentence. "I'm sorry I let this happen." She stared at the screen, blinking in disbelief. It felt like the last words of a suicide note. Like the edge of something irreversible. She called him. No answer. Called again. Voicemail. Panic exploded in her chest. She grabbed her keys and ran out the door. Jamal stood at the edge of the old quarry on the south side of Atlanta, where the streetlights ended and the world turned quiet. The water below shimmered in the moonlight like a black mirror. He clutched the gun in both hands. His breath came in cold bursts. He thought about the baby, his niece, his daughter. He couldn't even say which. He thought about Tiana's smile. About how warm her hand felt in his, before everything broke. He had written a note. It was folded in his back pocket. 3 pages, full of apologies. Full of truths no one should ever have to write down. Then his phone buzzed again. "Jamal, please, don't do anything. I know everything. I love you. We can figure this out." The words froze him. Love? He didn't deserve it. Not now. Not after this. He dropped the gun at his feet. But it was too late. The air outside the old Taylor house on Auburn Avenue felt colder than it should have in spring. Jamal stood on the porch for a moment, key trembling in his hand. He hadn't been here in years. Not since his father left. Not since secrets began to rot the walls like mildew. He looked back at Tiana. She followed silently, her face unreadable. Maybe she thought this was a peace offering. Maybe she believed there was still something to save. Inside, dust floated in the air like ghosts. The living room hadn't changed, same couch with ripped fabric, same water-stained ceiling, same crooked family photo on the wall. Jamal motioned for her to sit. She hesitated. Then, "Why are we here?" Jamal didn't answer. Instead, he texted one word to his mother, "Come." Upstairs, tucked under a floorboard, was the gun. He'd hidden it last week. His fingers curled around the cold steel like it had always belonged to him. He slid it into his waistband before coming back down. Tiana stood near the window, arms crossed. "I know something's wrong," she said quietly. "You haven't touched me in days. You won't look me in the eye." He opened his mouth but said nothing. "You're cheating," she said, finally. "You're seeing someone else." Jamal laughed. A short, bitter sound. "If only," he muttered. Before she could respond, the door creaked open. His mother stepped inside. Denise Taylor looked smaller than Tiana remembered. Her face was lined with exhaustion and guilt. Her eyes darted between them. "What's going on?" she asked slowly. Jamal didn't answer. He gestured for them to sit. The silence between them swelled like an overinflated balloon. Denise sat first, clutching her purse. Tiana sat last, hesitant. The moment felt fragile. Like one wrong breath would shatter it. Jamal's voice was hoarse. "Tell her, Ma." Denise looked at him. Her lips parted, but her courage failed. She looked down. She deserves to know. Tiana looked between them, confused. Know what? Jamal stood. He pulled out the DNA test papers, folded and worn. He handed them to her. Her hands trembled as she opened them. Denise whispered, "I never meant for this to happen." Tiana read the words. Her lips moved silently. When it sank in, her knees buckled. She dropped the papers and backed away like they burned. "No, no, this can't." She looked at Jamal, then Denise, wild with disbelief. "This is a mistake. A lie. You're lying." "I wish I was," Jamal whispered. Denise was already crying. "You were twins. I was 19. Your father didn't want two mouths to feed. So we gave one of you up." Tiana's voice broke. "And that was me." Denise nodded, sobbing now. "They told me you died in the hospital. But years later, I found out they adopted you out to a family in Birmingham. I tried to find you, I did." "You let this happen," Jamal hissed. "I didn't know it was her." Tiana sank to the floor, hands in her hair, gasping like she couldn't breathe. "I'm pregnant." Silence. The word hit the room like a grenade. Jamal leaned against the wall. His face was pale, drained. Denise whispered, "Oh my God." Tiana looked up at Jamal. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "Because I loved you," he said. The room cracked open then. Denise stood, shaking. "We can fix this. The baby doesn't have to know. We don't have to tell anyone." "There is no fixing this," Jamal said. He reached behind him. Pulled the gun out. Tiana screamed. "No!" Denise shouted. He didn't raise it. Not yet. Just held it loosely in his grip. "I loved you," he said again, voice empty. "I would have died for you. I would have married you, Tiana. But now." Tiana's voice was raw. "Then don't do this." "You knew," he said. She froze. "What?" He took a step closer. "You knew." Denise looked confused. "What do you mean?" "She said it," Jamal murmured. "Just now. She knew. She found out and she stayed." Tiana's voice cracked. "I only found out 2 days ago. I was going to leave, but I didn't know how to tell you." "You stayed," he said again, tears running down his cheeks. "You let me touch you. You let me dream. You let me talk about baby names. I was scared. You should have run." His hand lifted. Denise screamed, lunging toward him. A struggle broke out. Screams. Glass shattering. The gun clattered to the floor, then skidded beneath the coffee table. Silence. No one moved. And then, Tiana whispered, "I knew." That word. That one word. It destroyed him. Because it wasn't screamed in panic. It wasn't confessed in guilt. It was said like an apology. Like a prayer. Like she meant it. She knew, and still chose him. Jamal stumbled back. His knees hit the couch. He picked up the gun. Denise pleaded, "Jamal, please, don't do this. You're not a monster." He didn't answer. He stared at Tiana. And she, God help her, stared back. No tears. Only sorrow. He mouthed something. Then the sound split the air. Bang. Denise screamed. Bang. Another scream. Bang. Then nothing. Only silence. Only blood. Only the house on Auburn Avenue. Blue and red lights soaked the old porch on Auburn Avenue as police rushed into the house, guns drawn, boots thudding against the creaking floorboards. The door had been left ajar. Inside, the air reeked of gunpowder and something else, something heavier, metallic, final. 2 bodies lay sprawled on the floor, Denise Taylor, lifeless, a single bullet wound just below her clavicle. Tiana Hayes, barely breathing, crumpled beside the fireplace, blood pooling beneath her. And Jamal? He sat cross-legged in the middle of the room, face blank, the gun resting beside him like a used-up truth. He didn't resist when they arrested him. Didn't speak. Didn't blink. Just whispered one name under his breath as they hauled him away, Tiana. At Grady Memorial, surgeons fought for hours to keep Tiana alive. The bullet had pierced her left lung and grazed her heart. They worked without pause, fueled by adrenaline, by fury, by the cries of a trauma nurse who found the positive pregnancy test still tucked in her wallet. She made it through the night, but just barely. The baby didn't. Somewhere between her screams in the operating room and the hum of the incubator that never held anything, a life blinked out before it ever began. The child Jamal and Tiana had dreamed of, fought over, and mourned in advance, was gone. At the precinct, detectives tried everything: threats, kindness, silence, yelling. Jamal just sat there. Silent. Staring. Until Detective Riley slammed down a manila folder and said the word that broke him open. Sister. That was the trigger. Jamal's head snapped up. His voice cracked like old glass. She knew, he whispered. Riley leaned in. What do you mean? Jamal's jaw clenched. His eyes brimmed. She knew before I said a word. She knew, and she stayed. She said it in the house. Whispered it, like it was okay. He laughed, bitter and empty. She looked at me like I was still the man she loved. Like it didn't matter that we had the same mother. The room fell silent. What did your mom say? The detective asked. Jamal exhaled. She said I should have never known. That some truths should die quiet. She begged me not to ruin everything. He looked up. But it was already ruined. And the gun? The detective pushed. Jamal didn't blink. It wasn't for her. It was for me. Across town, Tiana woke up to a hollow silence. Her first thought wasn't pain, it was absence. She reached for her stomach. Flat. Gone. The tears came in waves, first for the baby, then for the lie, then for the man she loved. And finally, for the part of her that never saw it coming. She asked to see Jamal. They said no. She asked again. Still no. Then someone handed her a sealed envelope found in Denise's purse at the crime scene. Inside was a letter. Dated 2 weeks before the shooting. To my son, if you ever learn the truth. Denise had written everything. About the baby girl she'd been forced to give away after birth. About the foster family who took her. About her decades-long search to find that child again. And about the one thing she never found. Proof. Because according to the final lines of the letter, Tiana may not have been that baby at all. Denise had seen a photo of Tiana years ago, on a mutual friend's Facebook page, and became convinced. She followed her. Obsessed. Convinced herself this was the daughter she lost. But she never got DNA confirmation. Never told Tiana. Never even verified her birth records. It was all a guess. A mother's guilt, a memory clouded by time, and a desperate hope that she could reunite her family. But in doing so, she may have destroyed it. Tiana stared at the letter for hours. No tears. No breath. Just silence. Because it meant one thing. They might not be siblings. And everything that had happened, the blood, the bullets, the dead child, might have been for nothing. 3 weeks later, Jamal sat in a courtroom, shackled and hollowed. Tiana didn't show. The DA offered a deal, 25 years, second-degree murder. He didn't flinch. Just signed. Not because he thought he deserved it. But because deep down, part of him believed he did. In a world where he couldn't even trust his own mother, where truth was just another loaded gun, guilt felt like the only thing real. Back in Tiana's apartment, the nursery had already been painted. Pale green walls. Stuffed animals lined the crib. A tiny blue onesie still hung from the closet door. She stood in the middle of the room, hands on her stomach, eyes glazed. One life stolen. Another wasted. And a secret that would follow her for the rest of her days. Because even now, even after the tests and the letter and the bloodshed, no one knew for sure. No one ever would.